All right, Shalom. You reached the Heat Parade channel. My name is Azim. But first and foremost, I want to say, call the Hawaii, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Harachakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Hadarak, the way in which I learned this truth from, and who rule well. Salutations to the Bakiyar, the elect, the 144,000. That's 12,000 men from each of the 12 tribes of Israel. The 12 tribes of Israel consisting of so-called blacks, Latinos, and indigenous of America. The 144,000 being the governing body within the one-third. The rest of the one-third comprises of elect men, women, and children. Shalom to the Israelites scattered due to the diaspora and also the triangular trade, being considered the Gentiles. So our people come looking like different ethnicities, having various complexions. So it's not a black thing. We're not the black Hebrew Israelites. We're just Hebrew Israelites. Shalom to those that die in this truth. It says the dead should be raised up first. Those that will be accompanying Yahweh Shah on his return, including our King, King Mashah, who is King David. And as always, it's an honor and privilege, honor and blessing to continue to do this work. The water Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem Harachakwadash for answering my prayers and permitting me to do such. Baba Kashal Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shah Ba'ashem Harachakwadash. Allowed us to be an edifying lesson to at least one member of the elect. So this is from yahoo.com. You know, the biggest news dealing with the 2019 CV, you know, which they made a big deal about it, threatening, you know, your livelihood, demonizing people, even proclaiming to people that, you know, they were murderers if they didn't receive the jump shot. You know, but fast forward 6 years later, you know, the truth is coming out because the truth is always going to have its day, you know. And now this individual, Fauci, is pleading the fifth, man, even though he's been given a pardon. Which a little backstory is, you know, during that summer, because, you know, as watchmen, we're supposed to be watching. During that summer, you know, President Trump was orchestrating currency war and trade war against China and Xi Jinping. You know, I want to say it was around August or September in 2019. And then around that October, November, you know, they had some U.S. soldiers go to China to participate in war games. And it just so happens that they have a laboratory right next to that so-called wet market, in which they said was the start of the spread in Wuhan, which, you know, that's allegedly. So a few weeks going into December, January, you started to see footage of, you know, Moab, which is the so-called Chinese, collapsing and falling over and, you know, dropping dead, man. And then, you know, the rest is history. Preceding that, the whole world was in a big scare. And it was all bullshit. You know, so now you have all these people that got the V shot, you know, because of this guy. And, you know, they have all types of serious ailments. And also you have a high spike in AIDS. going on in America, man. Because it might not necessarily be from, sexual contraction, but one thing that this jump shot does is destroys your immune system, man. It gives you something, acronym for DADS or DAIDS, which is caused by the jump shot, completely destroying your immunity. And then, of course, you have the blood clots. A lot of people are complaining about heart, if I'm saying it right, palpitations, cardiac arrest. You have world class athletes, collapsing and having heart attacks, man, all because of a lie. And this is who this devil is, man. Because his goal is to reduce population, depopularize. This is Yahoo.com. It says Kentucky Senator Rand Paul has released his contempt resolution against Dr. Anthony Fauci's after his contentious hearing on Capitol Hill last week. Fauci pleaded the fifth several times as Paul and other GOP members on the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee sought to grill him about the origins and handling of the jump shot. President Joe Biden preemptively pardoned Fauci in January 2025 as he left office in hopes of short-circuiting political prosecutions against the longtime health officials. Yeah, man. Basically gave him a get out of jail free card, you know, um, as what he did to fast track the jump shot. So these other medications couldn't be tried out or tested out. That's what caused all these deaths, man. And now instead of people um, requesting you to be with the jump shot, now they don't want to be around anybody with the jump shot. So that's just how rapid fortunes can reverse in a twinkling of an eye, man. But it says authorizing the president of the Senate to certify the report of the Committee of Homeland Security and Governmental uh, Affairs of the Senate regarding the refusal of Dr. Anthony S. Fauci to answer questions pertinent to the subject under inquiry for the committee as required by committee subpoena, Paul said in part of the resolution posted on X, which that's a psyop. It's Paul, who released Fauci's diary last week, highlighted the doctor's two-sided remarks about masks, which he alleges Fauci said privately are ineffective in public. Meanwhile, Fauci wore 3 masks, he noted. Paul and other critics also accused the government scientists of privately pushing for school closures while publicly trying to appear hands-off. Um, It says privately he would acknowledge natural immunity. In public, he was saying, "Oh, we just don't know," Paul told News Nation. So there's a lot of public and private disparity, and I think that's really what's caught him up. And I think people don't like that hypocrisy. Paul said last week the committee planned to vote this week on the decide whether to hold Fauci in contempt of Congress. Right, man. And then it's alleged that he caught it. He caught it like 3 times and almost dropped dead, man. Allegedly. Because a lot of these government officials, they were given placebos, you know. But this is Job chapter 13, verse 4. It says, but ye are forgers of lies. So we always have to understand when we study our enemy like he studies us, that these are a nation of people that are liars, man. Let me look up the word forge. Uh Late 14th century, a smithy, forge, smithy, workshop, smith shop, hence also a trade, a industry, also a skillful production. So he's very skillful in his production of lies, you know. But since the Most High Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai Ba'ashem HaRachakwadash has been pouring out his spirit, his lies are being swallowed up. It says, ye are all physicians of no value. Right, because true healing comes from the Heavenly Father. Get that. Also through his Son. This is Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 39. It says, see now that I, even I am he, and there is no power with me. I kill and I make alive. I wound and I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. So it's Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua that kills, and he's the one that can make you alive. He could wound you, and he also can heal you, man. And there's no one that could be delivered out of his hand. It says, for I lift up my hand to heaven and say, I live forever. If I whet my glittering sword and my hand take hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to my enemies and reward them that hate me. So all those that hate Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai are going to be rewarded, man, in these times. And that's the reason why this devil was created, right? This is Proverbs chapter 16, verse 4. It says, Yahweh have made all things for himself. Yeah, even the wicked for the day of evil, which evil is a compound word meaning bad times. So we're in very, very bad times right now, man. This is Psalms chapter 58, verse 3. It says, the wicked are estranged or alienated from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. And that's all you could expect out of these people, man. Right? Now, this is a account in which Tobit was sick. This is Tobit chapter 2. And I'm going to see where I'm going to start up at. Just start at verse 4. It says, remembering that prophecy of Amos, this is Tobit chapter 2, verse 6, as he said, your feast shall be turned into mourning. And that's what really sucked the mirth out of this place, man. It was nothing but partying and bullshit going into 2020, and then it just sucked everything dry. And even today, people are struggling to recover, man, because all of the PPP loans and the aid, Trump came and brought the pressure from above, man. It says, in all your mirth into lamentation. Therefore I wept, and after the going down of the sun, I went and made a grave and buried him. But my neighbors mocked me and said, this man is not yet afraid to be put to death for this matter, who fled away, and yet, lo, he burieth the dead again. Because, Tobit was, I'll just start up, man, because he was doing a very noble thing. I'm going to start at the top. It says, now when I was come home again, and my wife Anna was restored unto me, with my son Tobias in the feast of Pentecost, which is the holy feast of the 7 weeks, there was a good dinner prepared me, in the which I sat down to eat. And when I saw abundance of meat, I said to my son, Go and bring that poor man, so ever thou shalt find out of our brethren, who is mindful of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, and lo, I tarry with thee. But he came again and said, Father, one of our nation is strangled and is cast out in the marketplace. So someone strangled him. It says, Then, before I had tasted of any meat, I started up and took him up into a room until the going down of the sun. Then I returned and washed myself and ate my meat in heaviness, remembering that prophecy of Amos, as he said, Your feast shall be turned into mourning and your mirth into lamentation, which is going on right now. Therefore I wept, and after the going down of the sun, I went and made a grave and buried him. But my neighbors mocked me and said, This man is not yet afraid to be put to death for this matter, who fled away. And yet, lo, he burieth the dead again, because he was going around burying his brothers, man. The same night also I returned from the burial and slept by the wall of my courtyard, being polluted, and my face was uncovered. Right, because there's laws dealing with being around a dead body. It makes you unclean. And I knew not that there were sparrows in the wall. And my eyes being open, the sparrows muted warm dung into my eyes, which caused them to lose his sight. And a whiteness came in my eyes, and I went to the physicians, right? So he went to the physicians, but they helped me not. Same thing that you Israelites do in this society. You go to these so-called doctors, these physicians, and they don't have a cure for you, man. They just got a treatment. And that treatment is just bullshit, man. It keeps you sick. It keeps the money flowing, man. It says, moreover, Akia Kairos did nourish me until I went into Elamias. It says, and my wife Anna did take women's works to do. And when she had sent them home to the owners, they paid her wages and gave her also beside a kid. So you can go ahead and read the rest. The point I wanted to make was not all these physicians are of value, man. You know, but this is Sirach chapter 38, verse 1. Unless they come of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. It says, honor a physician with the honor due unto him for the uses which ye may have of him. For Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai have created him. For of the Most High cometh healing. So you have to pray, man. Prayer is very important. You know, you got to pray that Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai heals you. Or at least give you the spirit in order to endure your ailment. You know, because even, you know, it says in the scriptures that Paul had an ailment. He had a prick in his side, man. Right? It says, and he shall receive honor of the king. The skill of the physician shall lift up his head. And that's why, you know, brothers, other brothers exalt other brothers that are really good with the herbs, man. The knowledge of herbs and different flowers and different plants and different foods to eat. And even certain of these meats have their purpose, man. You know, because if you want to lose weight, you would want to eat like chicken. But if you want to gain muscle, you would want to eat red meat, like some lean beef. You know, just for example. And if you want to cleanse your liver, you would want to eat salmon. It says, in the sight of the great man, he shall be in admiration. Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah have created medicines out of the earth. So there's medicines out of the earth because the Most High, he operates in duality. For every evil that he creates good, right? It says, and he that is wise will not abhor them, meaning you won't avoid them. It says, let me see. I'll just keep reading. It says, and he have given men skill that he might be honored in his marvelous works, with such doth he heal a man, or he heal men, and taketh away their pains. And really, that's all coming from the spirit world, man. The Most High, he uses, uh, first of all, you got to pray first. I can't stress that enough. But he'll use certain men, set up certain men to have that skill. You know, it says, of such doth the apothecary make a confection, and of his works there is no end, and from him is peace over all the earth. My son, in thy sickness, be not negligent. So don't be negligent. Don't put off, something that can be easily treated, man. And the first thing you got to do is pray. It says, but pray unto Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah, and he will make thee whole. He's going to make you whole if you believe that your prayers are answered. Give a sweet savor and a memorial of fine flour, and make a fat offering as not being, then give place to the physician. So he's giving you the proper steps. For Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah have created him. Let him not go from thee, for thou hast need of him. This is a time when in their hands there is good success. For they shall pray also, Salaki, for they shall also pray unto Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shah, that he would prosper that which they give for ease and remedy to prolong life. He that sinneth before his maker, let him fall into the hand of the physician. Because really illness comes from sin, man. You know? So this wasn't going to be a long video. It's going to be a short one. So with that, I hope at least one brother of the elect was edified. Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem Harachach Barak Yum, to the elect, the Bakiyar, and Abyab Yanawa, our enemies, meaning the enemies that we may have in this truth, which we shouldn't have any anyway. So with that, I'm going to say Shalom.